And I believe we are live. Welcome everyone to King Talks, the platform where we share marketing ideas worth spreading. Whether you're joining us on LinkedIn, YouTube, or on Facebook, please don't forget to leave us a big thumbs up. And if you've got any questions or comments, don't be afraid to drop them because we would love to engage with you further. So our guest today is Bronwyn Powell. Bronwyn is a digital content writer who has written content that's been read and shared across the web. Her love for storytelling started in the print newsroom more than a decade ago. Since then, she's worked with startups as well as established tech companies from South Africa and all over the world. Her articles have been featured on the web's biggest sites like optinmonster.com, digital.com, blogging.com, and so many more. She holds a BTech in journalism from the Cape Peninsula University of Technology and an honors in media theory and practice from UCT. When she's not writing, Bronwyn is running after her two little kids. Bronwyn, I know you're going to bring so much value to our audience, so please take it away.
Thanks so much for the intro, Tamara. I'm very excited to be here today. So yes, today I'm going to be talking about writing online to grow your business. And my promise to you is that by the end of this presentation, you'll understand the value that writing can bring to your business. And you'll also have a few practical strategies you can use to start writing for your business right away. So I want to kick off by just looking at why is writing online important. So the first benefit is that you can help your ideal customer. So your target customer, your ideal reader, they are on their phones or on their desktop and they are online. They are looking for an answer to their solution. They're looking for practical tips. When you create a piece of valuable online content, you can be there in that moment to help them, to answer that the question that they have, to help them solve that problem. The second benefit is that this then can grow your business. You are attracting readers to your website. Those readers might become customers, or they might share your content with other people online. And it's all because you have created this valuable resource for your readers. And then outside of those two benefits, you can actually change your industry. Think about it. There might be a topic or a challenge in your industry. Maybe you don't think it's getting the attention it deserves, or maybe you feel that the conventional kind of discussion around it is missing a very important angle. Once you express your thoughts and you start sharing those thoughts online, you are in a position to now kind of change that conversation, be a part of the conversation, and really kind of shape debate in your industry. So now that we've kind of laid that foundation on why writing online is important for your business, we're going to look at how you can start implementing it. So we'll start with practice. So this, actually, I have to credit Tamara here. This was a book recommendation by Seth Godin, the practice that she shared with me a few months ago. And that really kind of looks at the importance of establishing a creative practice. And you can do the same thing for your writing. Now, I have to tell you that when I decided I wanted to improve my writing skills a few years ago, I did not have good writing habits. So I'd feel very motivated and I'd write for an hour or two. And then, weeks would go by and I would not write a word. But everything changed once I developed good writing habits. And I want to share this resource with you. It's called Tiny Habits. It's written by a researcher who really looks at the psychology of habit formation. And you can use this to build better writing habits. So he talks about the ABC formula. A being your anchor. An anchor is an action that you do without fail every day. Maybe it's brushing your teeth. Maybe it's having your morning coffee. B is your new behavior. In this case, it's your writing habit. And C is your celebration. How do you reward yourself for building your habit? So in practice, this might look like A, what's your anchor? You have your morning coffee. B, what's your tiny behavior? It's your writing habit. And we say it's tiny because you might just want to start off with 10 minutes because you don't want to overwhelm yourself with an hour writing habit when you're just starting. And C would be your little celebration. So how do you reward yourself when something good happens? When you land a new client or when you get a client win? What's your natural celebration? Maybe you give yourself a thumbs up. Maybe you do a twirl on your office chair. BJ Fogg said this is all about kind of a natural celebration and giving yourself positive reinforcement so that you feel good because you've done something good, you've invested in yourself. So once you've kind of set on your writing habit, you want to find a writing slot you can defend. Now, if you are an entrepreneur, if you're a business owner, you have so many demands on your time. You want to find a writing slot that you know you won't be interrupted. Maybe that's early in the morning before your kids wake up, or maybe it's later on in the evening after you've sent your last customer email. The key is just that you know this is time that you can protect. Now, in addition to finding a slot you can protect, you also want to see if you can match your writing time to your energy levels. And I actually included a quote here from a celebrated South African writer, Zoe Wickham. She calls herself a reluctant writer. So she says, first thing in the morning, when her energy and her motivation levels are at their peak, she writes, because that's when she feels energized to do so. I'm very similar. I do my writing in the morning, but I know several writers who are at their peak later on in the evening. So it's all about finding a match for your energy levels. Now, once you have established your practice, you want to set on your process. So what are you going to be doing during this writing time? So process is just going to be the actions or the tasks that are going to help you accomplish your writing goals. Now here, like the importance of reflection, I just can't overstate. And I included another quote there from Andrew Mkolwa, a very famous South African writer. And she speaks about how does she get ideas for her writing. She says, experience, life, the people around me. And it can be the same for your business content. You might find that in a conversation with one of your team members, in a conversation with a customer, in an article you read, that this kind of inspires thoughts, or you think about a new perspective on this issue. So build time in your process to reflect. Maybe every Friday before lunch, you reflect on things that happened during the week. The second thing you might want to build into your process is speaking with customers. That might be phoning them, checking your emails. It might be looking at comments they've left on social media. This is such a valuable way to build a bank of valuable content because you are speaking directly to your potential readers. You know, what are their challenges? What blogs do they read? What do they want out of content? And then take notes. And this is such an underrated content generation tool. Just by like taking notes, whether it's during conversations or articles that you're reading, you also start building up this bank of ideas that you can always reference when you need to generate content ideas. And now I want to look at how you can also use tools and some other examples of things you might want to include in your process. Perhaps you want to check industry sites daily. And then you can allocate, 5 minutes each morning. You use a tool like Feedly, which will curate content from a selection of sites. And you just spend 5 minutes reading stories about your industry, maybe even checking up on competitor content. And then you might want to include free writing in your writing practice as well. Free writing is a writing technique where you just write for about 10 minutes, non-stop, writing without thinking. And I think it really gets to kind of the root of the problem with writing is taking these words from your head and putting them onto a piece of paper on the screen. This is a technique that I learned from a writing academic called Peter Albo, if you want to research that. And I put Pomodoro timer in brackets there because I find that the best way to really get into the writing zone is, tune out all distractions, put on a timer, put your phone on airplane mode and take it out of the room and just allow yourself to focus on writing. And then maybe once a month in your process, you want to set aside, 2 hours on a Sunday afternoon, a Saturday morning, and you want to review the search engine and you want to look at what content is ranking right now. So maybe you go onto Google and you can even just type your search term in there and Google will show you what content it is answering searcher intent just by looking at the top ranking articles. Then you can also use tools like Ahrefs and Moz. These are free and paid tools that you can use. I know Ahrefs, you can spend about $7 or $8, just under 200 Rand. And for 7 days, you will have access to full functionality of Ahrefs, and you can really do tons of keyword research during that time. And then maybe once a month as well, you want to look at what's the academic thinking in my industry? What trends should I be aware of? What is the latest research? And Google also has a tab called Google Scholar. So you can go in there and look at the latest publications. You can even filter it by year if you only want to see, research from the past year. So it's another valuable tool you can add to your toolkit. So now you have your process and you have your practice. What's the output is publishing. So I just want to say that I think, there's never been a better time to publish web content. You can literally go online and in over a weekend, under a day even, you can get online, even if you have very little technical experience. And then what's the benefits of publishing? You're pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. And I know that when I first started publishing content online, I was so nervous to just hit the publish button. But once you start publishing, you actually become just so used to sharing your ideas. The other benefit is that you can test your material. So you have an opportunity to now see what content is really resonating with people, what content is connecting with people. You can look at the responses. Maybe you have additional content ideas there based off of the comments that you receive. And then the last benefit I wanted to call out here was a term that I heard from a writer called David Perel, and he says that when you write online, you create serendipity vehicles for yourself. And the example that he uses is you publish a piece of content online, and then you go off, you live your life. You go to gym, you work in your business, you have supper with your family, and in that time, people from all over South Africa, all over the world are reading your content. And this lays the foundation for them reaching out to you, to work with you, to collaborate with you. So content can really open doors for your business. So now that we've covered publishing, I think there's a mindset issue that we definitely have to deal with as well. And that I look at persist. Because we have to acknowledge that writing can be frustrating, but you are not alone. And I added a quote there from Maya Angelou. Obviously, she's a legendary writer. She's won Grammy Awards, a Pulitzer Prize for her work. But she says that, when she was writing a book, she'd book herself a hotel room. And sometimes she'd sit there for 4 or 5 hours. And in a quote, she says all she could come up with it was a rat that sat on a mat. That's that. But she would continue to sit there and play with the language. So if you feel stuck, remember that you are not alone and that is temporary. That feeling of being stuck is temporary. You can work your way through it. So just keep pushing. Just stay at the keyboard. And then writing can be humbling as well. And I want to call out Seth Godin here again. In the practice, he talks about our kind of fixation with outcomes. We write something and we're so eager for the views and the engagement. And I mean, those metrics are important because you want to know that you are writing content that people actually find useful and valuable. But those things will come if you commit yourself to the process and you know that I'm writing content that really serves my audience. The views and the engagement will come. You don't have to kind of be worried about that. But just know that in the meantime, while you're waiting for that, you are making an investment in yourself because you are packaging your ideas, you are presenting your ideas, you are creating this library of useful content for your customers and your industry. So that's something that you can always take comfort in if you feel like writing is just so lonely or frustrating. So that is my presentation. Thank you for listening. Any questions?
Thank you so much for that. That was absolutely amazing, Bronwyn. I do not see any questions coming through from the audience just yet, but I do want to ask you a couple of questions. So the first thing I want to talk about is, the whole celebration aspect that you mentioned. Is there any sort of reward that you get from punishing yourself for not writing and not being persistent in comparison to celebrating your wins?
So the idea of celebration, it's actually so interesting. Actually, this is the book, Tiny Habits. So over in here, he talks about celebration. And he says what actually happens is you are speaking to your brain machinery because you are releasing dopamine and telling yourself, you know what, I've done something good, I'm rewarding myself. And it's like associating your habit with kind of these feel-good feelings. And then to your point, there's another writer on habits as well, James Clear, jamesclear.com. He also speaks about making a bad habit difficult and making a good habit easy. So maybe an example that I know I can relate to is if you want to start eating healthier, maybe don't have, chocolate chips around in the house. So you're making the bad habit of eating unhealthily, you're making it difficult. And maybe I'll replace that with apples and bananas. So I'm making the good habit, the desired habit, easy. So, maybe if you want to make your writing habit easier for yourself, maybe it's something as simple as like actually, I'm going to have Google Docs open so that, immediately in the morning, I'm going to have a shortcut from my bookmark and I can just click on it and there's like no friction whatsoever. And maybe I'm going to make it harder to check Facebook first thing in the morning. I'm going to make it harder to, browse YouTube videos for like, hours. Yes, I'm guilty of that. So maybe it's more about, making those habits that you want to decrease harder to do and make it easier to build the positive habit.
Okay, awesome. I see Linda was just commenting here. She says that we are present. Linda, please let us know what you're thinking. And Richard also says Sikona, which means we are present. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us. I've got one more question for you, actually. Okay, I see here. Craig is saying online presence is non-negotiable. Do you agree or disagree with that?
I definitely agree with you, Kate. And I think that really goes back to kind of what David Perel talks about when he says it is the serendipity vehicle. That you can publish content online now, and for weeks, months, years to come, it will be a tool where people can find you. Also, something to think about now in the digital age, when you want to work with someone, maybe you applying for a job, or maybe you are, sending a proposal to a client. What's the first thing they're going to do? They're going to take your name and they're going to go into Google and they're going to see, who is this person? What have they done? So if you can kind of control that presence so that, maybe your website comes up or your LinkedIn page. That's the first thing these people are going to see when they go into Google and they want to learn about you. So you are developing your storefront and kind of shaping how people will kind of understand or learn about you. So I definitely agree. Online presence, non-negotiable.
Awesome. I've got a question here from Sarah. She's asking which platform should she use if she wants to start to build like an online presence and perhaps through writing?
Oh, that's such a great question, Sarah. I actually think it would depend on your audience and your goals. So maybe if you know that you're in B2B, then I think, LinkedIn definitely makes sense. I don't know much about TikTok, but it might not be the platform that you want to choose if you know you have a B2B audience. So I guess it's knowing about your audience and your content goals. Obviously, I am biased towards online writing for a few reasons. I think that in addition to building your platform, writing is a great tool for helping you clarify your thoughts. If you also write, one blog post even a month, you might end up with 5, 6 pieces of smaller pieces of content that you can use, whether it's for LinkedIn or Twitter. So yes, I am biased for online writing. I also think that making the investment in building a website or a blog is something that, will continue to have returns in months, years to come. But definitely think about your goals. In your recommendation again of Tamara, the practice Seth Godin says, who is it for and what's it for? So think about who you're writing for and what's the content goal you are trying to accomplish.
Awesome. So, Sarah, perhaps you want to drop another comment saying exactly what your goals are and what your niche is, and we'll be able to assist you even further. Sam says this was such a quick conversation. Most of our conversation comes from actually you engaging with us, Sam. So she's also saying that the part about writing is quite challenging at first. She agrees with, and she's also trying to ease herself into it. So, do you have any more tips on how someone can ease themselves into writing consistently?
Sam, I think it's also like we're so tough on ourselves at times, and we feel like, okay, I've tried to write, but this is just too hard. This isn't for me. And once I started to realize that literally the writers that I have admired, like, Toni Morrison, Maya Angelou, all these writers, they went through the same struggle, and writing wasn't something that came easy for them. But the only difference is that they really stayed at the keyboard and that they committed to a writing habit. Toni Morrison specifically, I know she says, before dawn, she had a full-time job, so she got up, as dawn was breaking, before her kids woke up, and she decided she is going to write. So I think it's also just about being easier on ourselves, that yes, it is harder, but it does get easier. And I think also just working through that feeling of being stuck, because I know I've had moments where I'm at the keyboard and I'm like, I'm not making sense anymore. Actually, this is not for me. I'm not cut out to do this. But you just sit there and you stay at the keyboard, and then half an hour later, you write your way through that problem. And the next time when you feel like you're experiencing that same thing, being stuck, you're like, I've been here before. I just have to stay at the keyboard a bit longer. So just don't give up and know that writing is hard for everyone. Even every single writer that you've ever admired, it's been hard for them too. So just like go easy on yourself.
Yeah, definitely. And just to touch on that, I remember a couple of years ago, I came across someone called Ramit Sethi, and he said that no, in terms of writing, excuse my language, but he said that you need to create a first shitty draft. So tell yourself that the first draft is gonna suck no matter what, and it encourages you to just put it out there because you know that okay, this is going to be terrible, but I've got the opportunity to come back later and edit it. So just one of those things that I've used in my practice as well.
I love that message, and like it also makes me think of another quote, and I can't remember what it's attributed to, but it's something like, "You can't edit a blank page." So it doesn't matter how crappy your first draft is. Like that's not what you're going to be sharing with the world. That is private, and it's something that you can delete. No one has to see it. All the first draft is, it represents the start of the process. And now you have something to work with. And I think another, research that I've seen as well is that you actually develop new thoughts during the writing process. So you might have an idea in your head, but it's only once you're committed to the screen or to paper that you start to see either this isn't what I actually thought, and you start to veer off in different directions. So just even starting that writing process helps you kind of clarify your thoughts. So just see it as a start. It's private. No one has to see it.
Definitely. Sarah's asking again, is Facebook a good platform if you are writing content instead of like creating videos or images?
Well, I have to be honest that I do not use Facebook much at the moment. But when I have used it, I found that Facebook was a good, if you knew how to use it. At that time, I was doing Facebook Lives to kind of get increased engagement on Facebook, and that it might be a good way to kind of send people back to a property that you do own. And then I guess, of course, it would be a question of, do I have a Facebook company page? Organic reach is going to be low. Am I doing it from my personal page? So yeah, on whether Facebook is a good platform for writing, maybe it's from a point of view where you can write really short, snappy posts and bring people back, send people back to your longer content. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think about that, Tamara?
Right now with Facebook, like if you're just going to have a company page on Facebook and you are not driving ads to that company page, it's not going to be very valuable. Something that is working for Facebook right now is joining different groups. So if, for instance, you are a tech writer, you can join groups that talk about technology and share helpful content within those groups. So instead of just talking about your business and all of that, find comments within those groups and post within those groups where someone is sharing their problems, and then you share a solution that is definitely going to be beneficial to them. And the more you engage with those different people in those different groups, the more people are going to become aware of you and try and find out, okay, who is Sarah? Like, why is she sharing so much helpful information here? Is there anywhere else I can engage with this? So like Bronwyn said, you're going to have to use Facebook to drive traffic to your own platform. So if you've got a blog, you use Facebook to drive traffic to your blog instead of just staying on the platform, unless you can actually afford to pay for ads.
Yeah,
So I hope that helps, Sarah.
I think something to add on to that as well is I like the idea of what you're speaking about now. It's like building community almost around your content. And I mean, you can even do that on LinkedIn as well, participate in conversations around your industry, and then see it as a distribution tool. See it as a tool that can, drive traffic back to your own property.
Definitely. Got a comment here from Greg. It says that I feel that if you have 500,000 followers or users on your platform, but you only have like 10% engagement, that is not going to be useful. So business owners shouldn't feel bad or sorry for themselves for having 1,000 followers, because the rate of engagement is more important than the number of followers. What do you think about that?
I so agree. And I think nowadays it's like so easy to fall into that trap of like, becoming obsessed with follower count. And it can really kind of distract you from your goal, which what is your goal? It's to create something valuable, to create something that really like can serve people. So I want 100% agree with you. And I've actually seen, quite a few pages and quite a few people where they'll have maybe 1,000 followers or less, but they'll end up with like 20 comments. And when I go into those comments, I engage with the poster, I engage with other people, and the conversation is so rich. And then, at the other end, you might see someone who has 100,000 followers, and there's a handful of likes or one or two comments. So I definitely think that it's so tempting to kind of become fixated with these large follower counts. But really, at the end of the day, it's all down to engagement. Even in your DMs, people might be messaging you, and you might really be like forming relationships and building relationships around that content. And it's definitely not necessary to have like 1 million followers to do that.
Awesome. I have one more question for you. Like, I was thinking about, how video content is kind of currently like booming. So many people are saying, no, do video content, write video, create video content a lot. But I feel like there's such a powerful space for actual like written content. And I want to hear your thoughts on this. So I find like with sometimes when I am, for instance, let's give a simple example. When I am reading a recipe, like a cooking recipe, I don't want to watch a video on that. I actually want to see the recipe and see the ingredients like written down. Same goes for when I am reading up on technology and new technology. Like when someone is talking about it, I kind of get confused, but when I'm reading it, I find I'm actually able to grasp the message so much better. So I want to know, in your experience, have you found that there are certain industries that thrive better through written content as opposed to what's booming right now, which is video content?
I almost think like there's definitely space for both of them as well. And I feel like writing is almost a precursor or so kind of you can tie it to your video content, because look, when you're writing, you are developing your ideas, you're kind of thinking through even topics that you want to discuss in your video. And then, I mean, we can't ignore that, yes, people, even you're on LinkedIn, I know there was a time where if you were publishing video, you were guaranteed to have more reach on your content. So it's definitely something that you can't ignore. But yet at the same time, look, people still like to skim. I know, sometimes I'm looking for a quick answer online and I don't necessarily want to watch a whole video to get it. I maybe want to go into an article and I want to click on the header and immediately, like, as to your point about recipes, I want to quickly see, like, okay, what's the best headline formulas that I can try today? So I think that they don't necessarily have to compete. I don't see writing going anywhere anytime soon, just because it has so many kind of other benefits just for you to develop your thinking. So, and I definitely think they actually can complement each other. I mean, I just think of something like podcasts. It's a content format that, when I'm going for a walk or I'm doing a school run, I can put in a podcast. And in that moment, that is perfect for me. It's exactly like how I want to consume my content. So I definitely think there's room for all of these different types of content formats now.
Awesome. I've got a question here from Katlego. He says that would you recommend platforms like Patreon or Nebula, since they don't have AdSense like YouTube? So would it be good to create content on those platforms since they rely on user subscription? I've never heard of those platforms, so hopefully you'll be able to answer that.
I know so many podcasts that I listen to, and then I know the host often has a Patreon account. And I think that definitely gets into, issues around the creator economy, the passion economy, and monetizing the content that you create. I think definitely, rewinding a bit before doing all of that, I would probably look at really building my audience, my brand, my content pillars, and really, and I actually need to link out, there is a brilliant writer that I follow a brilliant blogger I follow on YouTube, and she talks about the idea of like a bank account. And so you first want to kind of deposit value into the market before you want to extract value out of that market. So before I would kind of look at ideas around monetizing, I would definitely have built up a solid library of content. And I want to see that, this content is really kind of attracting shares. People see it as a valuable resource. And then I think I would definitely go on to like, great, now how do I monetize that? And maybe it is something like I have a Patreon, and on my Patreon, those subscribers get access to, a masterclass with me or exclusive office hours. And because I've already built up this bank of valuable content, I already know the topics that this audience really resonates with. So I know that when I'm creating an offering here in my Patreon, that it's something that's really going to serve the needs of this community.
Cool. Thank you so much. I hope that answers your question, Katlego. I see one more comment here that is useful for discussion, and I don't see any other more questions coming through. Sam says that the first draft is really embarrassing. I always hide it somewhere in my cloud storage, and then I read it years later. So, Bronwyn, do you use this method of perhaps improving your work? So, writing something up and then going back to it like after a couple of years or months?
Sam, that is like, I think that can be such a source of inspiration. I have to say, I have an amazing editor. Shout out to Nathan. But working with him has even got me to the point where I look at my work from a few months ago and I'm like, wow, look at that progress. So I think sometimes we do feel embarrassed when we look at our old articles and we were like, oh, I know a few years ago when I look back at my articles now, I just think, there's so much jargon, so much buzzwords. You are like trying to sound smart before you're trying to really impart any value to your readers. So to me, looking at old articles, first drafts, yes, they are cringeworthy, but I also can look at them and be like, wow, I'm proud of you. You've committed to grow in your craft and you've come a long way. So yeah, they to me are just points of inspiration. That's crappy first drafts.
No, I get that. I get that. Just seeing a couple more comments here. People, Sarah saying this was so helpful. Thank you so much, Sarah, for joining in and asking questions. Evelyn also says thank you to both of us. Thank you, Evelyn, for joining in. And again, if you've got any more questions coming through, we would be more than happy to answer those. Okay, so I just want to know, like, from you, like, I'm done with my questions, and I see the audience is also got their full expression for this from this interview. So, is there anything else that you'd like to share around, writing and having an online presence and writing digitally? Anything comes to the top of your mind?
I would say first, just get a kind of goal, a content goal that you can kind of use to measure the progress that you are making. And then just adopt a mindset that you are just going to commit to writing regularly. And don't overwhelm yourself. It's so easy to say, oh, but I can't write, for an hour every day. Maybe you're like, I have enough time. I have competing demands on my time, but I can write for 10 minutes a day. And you'll really start to see that build up over time. And then just remember, as I know we want to rush ourselves and we want to see the results. While you're waiting for the results, you are making an investment in, packaging your ideas, presenting your ideas. And you'll really start to see after that just the writing in itself is just such an investment in your growth and in your business. And just don't give up. Everyone gets stuck. Everyone feels discouraged at times. Just don't give up. It's not you. It's just part of the writing process.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Bronwyn. And I'm sure, like the comments that came through, everyone else that's at home also agrees that this was an absolutely valuable conversation. I truly appreciate your time, and we will leave it at that for now. Thanks, everyone, and I'll see you again next week.